What's up, dudes? It's been a little while, and I wanted to update you with a little stuff of what's been going on recently, as well as an experience, a wonderful video game experience that I wanted to share with you all about the next generation of systems, and it's using the Xbox One controller with fighting games. Now, I appreciate you guys sticking around. Hopefully you don't get too offended by my little Killer Instinct movie troll video. When I troll, I end up usually putting way too much effort into it, and it's not as funny as I think. But regardless, we're talking today about the Xbox One and some next-generation stuff. Now, I don't have the perspective of both systems. I have not used the PlayStation 4 controller yet, especially when it comes to fighting games, because the PS4 will not have a fighting game until launch when Injustice does come out. But there is one game that I've had a lot of hands-on time with, and the recent opportunity I've had to actually play the game is Killer Instinct for Xbox One, and for a brief time I did not want to use an arcade stick because I keep getting a lot of questions from audience members and comments and things like that saying, Max, what's the Xbox One controller like? Is the D-pad good for fighting games? Do I need to get an arcade stick? And so on and so forth and blah. So let's just tackle most of these questions right now, and I'll start with my base impressions of the Xbox One controller and relate it to fighting games. First and foremost, the controller seems much lighter than the original Xbox 360 controller. I do like the X360 controller, I think it's pretty good. The D-pad is awful for the most part, and you get used to it for some things. I still see dudes do amazing with the X360 controller on fighting games, which blows my mind. But for the most part, we know that the D-pad is bad. We know that it doesn't work in many situations and stuff like that. And that is the one thing that has been fixed for the Xbox One controller. The D-pad on Xbox One reminds me of a slightly bigger and more thin version of an SNES D-pad. Hopefully that makes sense to you. It's not as elevated as an SNES D-pad, and it doesn't have as rounded edges and stuff like that, but it does feel really good, and it has very distinct clicks when you hit a direction. These clicks really remind me of an arcade joystick, how like when you go to one direction, up, down, left, and right, it registers a click. And this is actually really similar with the Xbox One pad. It'll be really weird at first. It doesn't feel like any other D-pad that I've used before, but now that you have like a different amount of weight for the entire thing, and that the D-pad is dramatically different than almost any controller I've used so far, it feels not like any freaking controller I've ever used on a video game system. It's mostly similar to the Xbox 360, of course, but it has a lot of other differences, and I'll talk about the stuff I like, and then I'll talk in the end about the stuff I don't like. But yeah, the D-pad is one of the better ones. Over the span of about the first 5 games I played Killer Instinct, I was like, I don't know if I like this. This is actually kind of freaking weird, and you do have to kind of think differently when you're using it because it's just registering different motions that you're used to. But after 5 games, and until about like the 10th game, I was like, wow, I'm actually not thinking about it anymore. I'm not thinking about the fact that I'm using a controller, I'm just doing it and it's working. I've had a lot of experience playing fighting games with controllers. Until I was about 13, 14 years old, every single fighting game I had played was with controller, and then I finally learned controllers because I had to play in the arcades. And as comparison so you guys can understand, I think the PlayStation controller, or the original PlayStation, the DualShock 1, the DualShock 2, those things, are some of the best controllers you can have for fighting games because the shoulder buttons are really easy to press for your index and middle finger on your right hand. I hate having to press buttons with my left hand, going to L1 to press like Fierce Punch. I hate that. I also really like the separated D-pad configuration of the PlayStation D-pads. I think it's really smart and it makes it very easy for fighting games. Now, moving along, the Xbox One pad does other things that are pretty different. The thumbsticks they don't feel too different from the original Xbox 360. They're definitely more stiff, and they do have a little bit more resistance, so there are some people that really like playing fighting games with the analog stick, and this will actually benefit that a lot, because really loose analog sticks, you get a lot of other inputs and motions and stuff like that. They're mostly designed for 3D games, and in 2D fighting games, you get screwed up using that stuff, especially myself. But sometimes if it was like a complicated motion or something along those lines, I would just go to the thumbstick really quick and try it, and I was like, oh, it's actually working. I'm kind of freaking weirded out by this because I usually hate using thumbsticks on 2D games. So that's a good thing. The only downside, besides the fact that yes, the D-pad is insanely better, it takes a little while to get used to. Once you get used to it, it's really good. The thumbsticks are way tighter, move well. The face of the controller, like the buttons, don't even worry about that because it's pretty much similar to everything else you played. The issue comes with the bumpers. Now, the bumpers you need in fighting games, in my opinion, because the bumpers represent the first button, and then the back button is the trigger. Triggers are fine, there's no issues with the triggers at all. But the bumper usually, for me, represents on the right side, heavy punch, and then the trigger on the back is heavy kick. Now, the challenge with the trigger is that not the entire trigger is the active zone. And by active zone, it's hard to describe, but it means that you can't press the entire trigger for it to register a button click. If you press it too close close to the inside of the controller, you kind of don't get a button press at all. But if you press it anywhere within like the greater like 3/4 outside of the controller from the inside to out, then you get a button press and it's totally fine. The issue is with guys that have big-ass hands like me and long, stupid pianist fingers. I didn't say penis. It's really freaking a problem. It makes it a huge issue where you have to like depress the middle of your finger instead of the tip of your finger, and for those situations, I was actively having to think I have to reposition my finger to press this button. It's slightly annoying, but like I was saying, over the span of 10 matches, I wasn't having to think about it as much anymore, and I did get used to it. Although, it's not like I got used to it like the D-pad, it's still like kind of cumbersome, the fact that this is this way, which doesn't make much sense to me because the bumpers on the Xbox 360 controller are totally fine, and they work really freaking good. And it's the same thing for the PlayStation 3 stuff, so it's the only big issue I've had with the Xbox One controller. Other than that, it might actually be an extremely good fighting game controller. You might not have to go into looking into like buying a fight pad or getting all this extra equipment or something like that unless you really want all your face buttons right on the front and available like most customized pads you see today. And that would be really similar to pretty much one of the greatest fighting game controllers ever made, which was the Sega Saturn pad. So what I'm trying to tell you guys is that, yes, you can play fighting games with the Xbox One pad. It works. It works better than I actually thought it would, and I got way too comfortable with it way too fast. So in a situation where you have to go to like maybe a weird tournament and they don't have arcade sticks, I'm pretty confident that I could do almost just as good as I possibly can, if not like a little bit worse, using a controller. The bigger issue comes with like precise movements like dashes and stuff like that, and that just takes practice. But a lot of questions I get recently are, do I need a fight stick? Do I absolutely need a fight stick to go into this thing? Well, I am personally have a preference of using a fight stick. Yes, I would like a fight stick when playing something like Killer Instinct on Xbox One, or pretty much any other fighting game for the most part that isn't a 3D-based fighter. If Soul Calibur 2 Mystically came out on Xbox One, I would probably use the controller for that because I'm just used to it. But if you're looking for like a reason to either spend $200 or just stick with the controller, or you really like arcade sticks, or you really like D-pads and controllers, good news is that the D-pad and this stuff works well on Xbox One, and if you like arcade sticks, I think you should probably still go with the arcade stick, but if you're breaking the bank, then you absolutely can't afford an arcade stick right now and you have to wait for a more affordable one to show up, you guys should be fine. I wouldn't worry too much because it'll just take a little bit. And then by a little bit, I mean like 30 minutes of practice to get used to it. So hopefully this helps you guys out. Thank you very much for watching. The new consoles are right on the freaking horizon. Killer Instinct is among us, and I will talk to you again very soon. My name is Maximilian, and I'll see you next time.